Hi, my name is Steve Chizmar, Bureau Director for PennDOT's Bureau of Innovations. It is my pleasure to host a series of podcasts celebrating the 10th anniversary of Pennsylvania's State Transportation Innovation Council, or STIC for short. The second installment of the STIC's 10th anniversary podcast series focuses on successful STIC and Federal Highway Administration everyday counts innovations from the past decade. Today's episode will highlight the intersection and interchange geometrics innovations that Pennsylvania championed as part of Federal Highway Administration's Everyday Counts Round 2. As part of this effort, PennDOT advanced the use of roundabouts and diverging diamond interchanges, or DDIs for short, across the state. Today I'm speaking with Rachel Duda, Assistant District Executive for Design in PennDOT's District 12, and Joe Szcur, former District 12 Executive and now Director of the University of Pittsburgh Center for Sustainable Transportation Infrastructure. Rachel and Joe have been instrumental in advancing innovations in Pennsylvania. In fact, District 12 was the first district to use the DDI design. Welcome, Rachel and Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Well, folks, we're going to dive in here, but before we do, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your involvement with the development of roundabouts and also diverging diamond interchanges? And Rachel, why don't you go first?
Sure. As you mentioned, I am the Assistant District Executive for Design in PennDOT District 12. I've been in District 12 for 24 plus years. About half of those years were spent in my current position. Another large chunk of time was spent as the traffic engineer slash risk manager. The last 3 years, I've been the State Transportation Innovative Council Technical Advisory Group Leader for design, so the TAG team. Throughout the years, I've taken numerous classes on innovative intersections and interchanges, and I helped design some of the first roundabouts in Pennsylvania, and District 12 has the pleasure of opening the first diverging diamond interchange in the state of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Rachel. And diverging diamond interchanges is really a mouthful. So
Yes.
from this point forward, you folks will probably most likely just hear me referring to them as DDIs for short. So, Joe, same question to you.
All right. Thank you, Steve. As you mentioned, I retired from the department after 35 years of service 2 years ago now. That was a very fast 2 years, and had the fortune of being brought on with the University of Pittsburgh. I was just recently also asked to direct their IRISE consortium, the Impactful Resilient Infrastructure Science and Engineering consortium that the university formed back in 2018. So I'm furthering my education, so to speak, and learning a different perspective on how important everything is with regard to who all is involved in transportation infrastructure and transportation management. Spent the last 16 years, a little more than 16 years of my career as the district executive in District 12, and then started my career in engineering District 10. Had a variety of positions up there. So we were very fortunate so that back in, I think, 2005, 2006 timeframe, we had a challenge set forth for us on Interstate 70 in particular. There was a 40-mile plus corridor between Newstand and Washington that we wanted to modernize. It was very functionally deficient, so to speak. And as part of that, and as Rachel had mentioned, we had a number of other singular intersections that we also needed to figure out how to improve the safety of those. And that's when we started thinking about all these different types of modern day interchanges and intersection configurations, and we put them to practice. So it was exciting.
Sounds great, Joe. Joe, thank you. As a matter of fact, Joe, let's throw the first question to you. While DDIs are still somewhat new to Pennsylvania, roundabouts have been institutionalized and used across the state quite extensively. What were some of the tools PennDOT, specifically District 12, used to get the public to embrace roundabouts?
Yeah, that's a good question. When we started looking at a number of the intersections, and then also with I-70, we knew that what interchanges we needed to work on, and also roundabouts played a role in some of the interchange configurations for I-70, as well as the individual safety projects that I had mentioned off of the interstate. But they were new. Back then, today they're being used pretty extensively, but back then, 15 years ago, they weren't that much in Pennsylvania. So it was a learning experience for ourselves as well as the public. And as we had identified and proposed some of the intersection improvements where we were going to use roundabouts, of course, we had public meetings, but as part of those public meetings, the design teams and Rachel and the project managers that were involved and the consultant teams were able to use simulations as part of the educational material, computer simulations to show and help educate people on how traffic would flow through the roundabouts, how to navigate them. Also at the same time, I know there were a number of educational pamphlets that were being developed because they were new. And, we were going to, again, have to educate ourselves, let alone the public, on how to utilize and use the roundabout safely. And so that information, as well as website information, a lot of our projects had individual websites that people would access to learn more about the project. And then every time our project managers had an opportunity to speak with, whether it's chambers of commerce or local municipal officials about the project, it was the focus was on what a roundabout is and how to safely navigate it. So it was quite extensive.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you. Rachel, let's switch gears here to DDIs for a second. What were some of the largest hurdles faced in deploying the first DDI in Pennsylvania? And how did you overcome that in District 12?
Well, I think the largest hurdle, just like the roundabout, is, trying to have the public buy into it. And, the media, sometimes they portrayed this as a great innovation that was going to save lives. And sometimes the media, they didn't portray it that way. And, when you go to a public meeting and you tell people that they're going to be driving on the left-hand side of the road, it's kind of hard for some people to visualize that. And sometimes the news channels would take that and run with it. And, we had younger people who were, hesitant about it. And we had, maybe some older people that we thought wouldn't be too keen on it actually listen and come to the meetings, and they thought it was a great idea. But just like the roundabouts, we took every opportunity that we could to educate people about the safety benefits, the capacity benefits, how to drive them. And we tried to make decisions at this intersection and interchange as easy as possible. So you make it really hard to make a wrong decision. And we had the project manager and our team speak at public meetings. We went to different types of clubs, personal care homes. Whenever someone asked if we could come and speak to them, we did. And we put together a video simulation and made brochures about the DDIs. The animation was very realistic. So, the one that we have in Washington, there's a Target on one side, there's a Walmart on the other, and there's a car dealership. All those were true to life. And so when we had the animation, we had cars driving through the interchange and the different intersections, and it made it feel like you were actually driving. We put all this information on our website. It's www.i70projects.com. We had so much, we passed out business cards and we had so many hits on it. And I actually think when all was said and done, that people knew better how to drive the DDI than they did a roundabout. And I'm not, just because of how much information and how many meetings we had. And then I'm not sure if you realize this or know this, we have another DDI that just went to construction at the I-70 and 51 interchange. And when we had those public meetings, people came to the meeting and I would say, hey, have you ever been to the DDI out there on Martland Avenue in Washington? And they would say, yes. And I said, well, that's what's going on here. And they were like, great, I really love that interchange. At first it seemed kind of confusing, but, it's easy to drive through and, I really like it. So we didn't get one complaint, on our second DDI that we had under design. So I think the biggest thing is, to face those hurdles is just over communicate and educate the public.
Let's stay on DDIs here for a second. Joe, can you tell us more about the benefits of DDIs and where and when it makes sense to use this innovative design technique.
Sure. With regard to the DDI at the interchange of I-70 and Mertland Avenue, it's where Route 19, they're one and the same, crosses underneath I-70 in Washington County. Earlier on in the design of that project, and it was, Barry Lyons was our project manager. He was a superb project manager in District 12. I remember sitting down with the consultant team in our basement, looking at some various alternatives, and they were traditional alternatives, whether they were, what we would refer to as the diamond interchange or cloverleaf type or half cloverleaf types. But as Rachel had just mentioned, at the location where we were looking at with Route 19 and I-70, 3 of the 4 quadrants were just, there were major businesses within close proximity of the roadway. And as you looked at these, what were traditional interchange templates that are used here in Pennsylvania and throughout the country back when the interstates were built, some of those interchanges literally wiped out a lot of these major businesses. And we looked at that and we were like, oh my goodness, how we can't possibly acquire or impact these businesses like this. We're putting this interchange in to benefit these businesses, not to have to wipe them out. So I remember asking Tony Mento at the time from the Federal Highway Administration if there were any other type of interchanges out there that we should consider. And he actually said, it was that back then it was Salt Lake. The Olympics were just being completed in Salt Lake, and prior to that, they had made a number of roadway improvements, and they had actually used the DDI as part of some of their infrastructure improvements. And so we started looking into that. Our consultant, Barry Lyons, our project manager, Rachel, and all her teams looked into it, and lo and behold, not only did it work, but it fit within almost the template of what we would call our existing right-of-way, the existing interchange out there. So it greatly minimized and eliminated what we were looking at with the other interchanges in the way of right-of-way takes. And so that was a huge benefit, let alone what we also had there was a large amount of traffic on Route 119, both coming onto the interstate from 19 and then getting off the interstate from I-70. And so when you had that many turn movements, of course, that's going to impact the signal sequencing and timing and the need for left turn lanes. And we all have been through intersections and where turn lanes are super long, they're dual lanes and dual lefts, and they impact the signal timing to the point where you're sitting there for minutes on end. So that's what the other benefit was. When we looked at this, it helped eliminate at least one major phase of the sequencing. And then so even though you're driving on the opposite side of the roadway, which was very unique and something that with Rachel and her team, when they were out trying to convince or educate the public on how to navigate through these, we just basically would tell them, follow the pavement markings. And so it's not that difficult, but that's where the benefits were.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. And clearly, this gets to the heart of what the STIC is all about, too, taking a technology used in another state, putting it in motion here in Pennsylvania. So thank you. Rachel, DDIs and roundabouts were part of FHWA's Everyday Counts, or EDC, Round 2, Intersection and Interchange Geometrics Innovation. I know that's a mouthful there, but I believe that actually launched in 2013. How has the innovation evolved over the years, and what does it look like now?
Yes, there's definitely some lessons learned. There's all types of innovative intersections and interchanges. For example, when we put in our first DDI, we didn't really know what the safety benefits were because there wasn't a history there. But the little bit of information we have, the total crashes were down 46% in the first year, left turn crashes down 72%, and rear end crashes down by 29%. And really what the DDI does and what roundabouts do is they eliminate a lot of the conflict points, and eliminating conflict points makes it harder to make a bad decision. And like one of the things that we learned is don't make the intersections at a 90-degree angle. Make them more look like a ramp so that you're merging onto a road, because you don't want people to have the ability to turn left. One of the things for a roundabout that we learned, it's a different color to make the truck apron a different color than the roadway so people don't mistake it for another lane. The truck apron is to be used by the tractor trailers to navigate the roundabout and being able to use that inside apron for their trailer. So I think, that was a lesson learned. You don't want to have them the same color as the roadway because then people will use that area to pass or as a, second lane. And then for Diverging Diamonds, there have been a lot of insights on how to handle the pedestrians and, the multimodal type people that are using the intersections and interchanges. And just as Joe said, he and I were like a team on this. The pavement markings and the signs make a huge difference for DDIs and roundabouts. And one of the things for the DDI, which is absolutely critical, is to look at the adjacent intersections. You need to make sure that capacity also exists at those intersections and that they're part of the interchange. Because if you don't look at those adjacent intersections, it can make the whole DDI not function as if they were supposed to. And, District 12 did reach out to District 8. They had the next DDI in the state of Pennsylvania, and we shared all these lessons. And I've been to some of their presentations, and they definitely incorporated them.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Joe, the STIC's motto is innovation through collaboration. Can you tell us how collaboration helped to advance DDIs and roundabouts here in Pennsylvania?
You often hear everybody talk about the transportation community. And when you think about all the entities that make up that community, so to speak, you have the department, PennDOT, of course, you have FHWA, you have all your regional MPOs and RPOs throughout the state, county planning organizations, academia, contractors, suppliers, consultants, local governments, elected officials, the public. So the only way to make that a success is through collaboration and cooperation, so to speak. And so that was a huge benefit that our folks carried with them. Not only did it wasn't as if we went out and tried to dictate to everybody, this is what we're going to do and just live with it. We don't work that way. You have to go out and get everybody to sit down, discuss these things, identify issues. On a lot of these major projects, we would actually engage the municipalities and the local officials as part of our design process, and then that would carry through to their input through the construction process as well. And so the STIC allowed us to not only give those new ideas a formal setting to advance through consideration and implementation, but also, an inferential out of the STIC itself was giving everybody that confidence, knowing that you had people and employees, whether it was ourselves bringing up ideas or our employees, which is most important for the employees to bring up the ideas, because those folks are dealing with issues day in and day out, and they have a lot of good ideas. They just need to have that form by which they know they can bring up an idea and it won't fall on deaf ears. And I think here we are 10 years into the STIC being in existence, and there are super amount of successes throughout the state, and that was one of the things that we embraced in District 12, and everybody's still embracing it, not only in District 12 but also throughout the state, and putting it to practice. And so that's it doesn't get any better than that.
Well, thank you, Joe. Yeah, I mean, 10 years of success. There's that is quite an accomplishment. And, hopefully we're having the same conversation here in another 10 years. I don't think I'll be hosting the podcast at that time, but hopefully the STIC will still be here, and I'm sure it will be because it continues to go strong. Rachel, you mentioned that, obviously whenever District 8 was installing a DDI, you reached out to them. Well, let me ask you a question. What advice would you give another district or even a local municipality interested in deploying a DDI, especially as it relates to gaining public support?
I would say, if someone requests a meeting, have one, have as many as you need. We used to tell people that we'll meet with anyone, anytime, and anywhere. And we did. The project manager, Barry Lyons, became a celebrity. And when you go to these meetings and, meeting with different people, listen to what they have to say. PennDOT Connects is based upon that. The locals have some insight that we may not know about. So listen to what they have to say. But my other piece of advice is not to back down from doing the right thing. Even if you have to endure a beating, people are hesitant to change, but the final product will be with it, will be worth it. I can't tell you how many people told me that they were skeptical about accepting these new intersections and interchanges, but now they look back and they think how much better the interchange is, how much more efficient, how much safer it is, and they actually thank me. So no matter what, always look to the future and do what you think is the best in terms of safety.
Thank you, Rachel. Joe, do you have any advice or tips for interested individuals who might be enthusiastic about innovations on how to get the buy-in and support necessary to pilot innovations on Pennsylvania roads?
Yeah, Steve, what we did back in the early days when the STIC was, getting their feet on the ground, I was fortunate enough to sit in on a lot of the steering committee meetings as the representatives from the DE Council. And one suggestion that we put forth was, we have to put this to practice in the field, so to speak. And so, a lot of the people in the districts are referred to as the field. And one of the ideas that came out that we actually put to practice was conducting an innovation forum individually, specifically for our district initially. Then we had a regional one, and then we had one, you were involved actually, Steve, with the one for the local governments that we piloted in our area. But that's when you get people engaged and give them an opportunity, for instance, at our innovations forum, Karen Vandervoort, Mike Benini, the whole gang came out, and it was so successful because everybody, as a team, we put on and put forth how we were going to conduct these, gave our employees as well as consultants on some major projects that we were doing design on at the time, and contractors an opportunity to look at things differently, bring them up. Whether they, not every idea was implemented, not everything can be put to practice because of certain circumstances that exist, but at least you're hearing about these. And, when you see employees bring up ideas, and then they're considered or actually implemented, it's so, you can't put a price on how important that is to an organization. The other thing we did in our district was we created what we refer to now as our Safety, Quality, and Innovation Council, where you have individuals, mostly from our maintenance organizations, coming up with ideas. And, our maintenance folks do it better than anyone, really, when it comes to what they're dealing with trying to stretch the dollar and make more efficiencies and productivity gains. And so we did that. We put that's been in place for many, many years now. And that was one of our most favorite meetings that we would have quarterly in the district. We would circulate them and give people an opportunity to present new ideas and innovations in their area, and so that they could also be considered from not only our other counties, but also other districts. And so those are a couple ideas that we actually put to practice that were extremely successful.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Rachel, let's shifting gears here for a second. I know that you served as the STIC's Design Technical Advisory Group Leader for, I believe, the last 2 years. In your opinion, what are some of the benefits of bringing an innovation to the STIC?
Yes, actually, I got a bonus year, so 3 years, because Karen Michael retired and I took up the rest of her term. But the biggest benefits to the STIC are, meeting new people and making new connections, hearing what other states and FHWA has to say and what they're doing is awesome. And everyone that attends these meetings are interested in innovations and developing them. Anytime you bring an innovation into your tag team, you're sharing an idea that someone believes can save time, money, or even lives. And in reality, that's the main goal of PennDOT and the STIC. So it was just something that I thought was great, and having everyone together that cares and, takes pride in their work, it was, that was a great benefit.
Thank you, Rachel. Joe, during your extensive PennDOT career, particularly, when you were district executive in District 12, you were a big proponent of innovation. Why do you think innovation is so important, and how do we ensure that we continue to encourage our employees to, to coin an old phrase here, to think outside the box?
You're right. Innovation is extremely important. I'm a believer that if you're not innovating, then you're just simply maintaining and you're just at the status quo. And you just simply can't do that. People are investing. We're investors in our own companies. When I was a state employee, and as employees, you're residents of Pennsylvania, you're paying tax. And you sure want that peace of mind knowing that, your tax dollars are being put to practice and being used very efficiently. So when you think about innovation, imagination, ingenuity go hand in hand. And so when you're looking at trying to create an environment, then you need that belief amongst all your employees. And so that safety, quality, and innovation council that I had mentioned, when we would talk about that amongst ourselves and listen to the employees, and actually listen and implement what it is that they're coming up with, because I was also a big believer that our employees that are the most safety conscious are also the most productive and also the most innovative. And so we have that responsibility as stewards of taxpayer dollars and public employees to create that environment and put it to practice. Not only believe it and put it to practice yourself, but also give that encouragement and that same opportunity to every employee out there. And again, that's where the STIC has played a major role in advancements along those lines. And so it's part of our culture now. And so there's no doubt that it's going to continue to grow, but you don't want to lose that because it would be hard to get back. And so it's great to see that the STIC is still in place and running very strongly, and it was used as a model nationwide for other states' STICs. And it's just a wonderful thing to see when you look back now, when I've been retired 2 years, and see all the fine things that our employees had accomplished. It's something that every one of them can take a look at, whether they were working on a small bridge in our maintenance organization or a major project like the DDI. All of our folks that were involved in that, and design and construction and all the support units, and be part of that. And it's something that they can all take a lot of pride in.
Joe, Rachel, thank you, folks. As we come through these types of interviews, obviously it's always nice to reflect and reminisce. And speaking with folks like you, it kind of drives home just not only how important the STIC is, but how important the collaboration that was founded through the STIC continues to be. Is there anything that I'm missing? Anything you folks want to add before we close?
Well, for me, I just want to, reiterate that new ideas and innovations are scary to people and they can react in a harsh way, but you need to keep your path if you believe it's the right thing to do. It will make a difference. We need to keep at the forefront of innovation. People will be uncomfortable when there's change, but do the right thing. And it's always great to have a boss that supports what you're doing and, doesn't doubt it. And I've had that in District 12 and with the STIC and with central office. So I feel very supported with all of them. And that's what you need in order to make a change.
And then from my standpoint, just say briefly that if you're not innovating, you're falling behind. And the PennDOT has that responsibility to continue to provide for its citizens and the motorists that utilize all of our roadways and bridges and all of our services. They need that forum that again encourages employees and gives them the confidence that they can bring up an idea. Maybe a lot of times it'll be put to practice, and it can be done very expeditiously, which was, before the STIC, if somebody had an idea, it was a coin flip as to whether or not that would actually ever get implemented. But giving it that formal presence and formal look that the STIC does, again, that's the way the advancements are being made, and our folks deserve the best. And that's what we're getting with the STIC, and it's been a great thing to be part of.
Well, thank you, Joe. And I can't think of a more appropriate way to close today's interview, but Folks, thank you so much. Continue innovating, continue leading, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you both very soon. Thank you for joining us today and for helping us celebrate the PA STIC's 10th anniversary and its efforts to develop and deploy innovations across Pennsylvania. Visit www.penndot.pa.gov/STIC to learn more about the PA STIC and how we are innovating transportation in Pennsylvania.